Welcome to Sequence, the show where we ask music tech founders to talk through 3 tracks that have inspired or influenced their business. Today, we're joined by Jamie Parmenter from SpinBard, which is providing a new way for artists to engage with their fans through physical digital memorabilia. We talk frisbees, Taylor Swift, nostalgia and NFTs, and ways in which artists can balance monetizing their fan base with innovative ways to provide value. Let's get into it. I'm here with Jamie from SpinBard. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a bit about your business.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, first of all, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, my name is Jamie Parmenter and I'm founder at SpinBard. Now, SpinBard is a music tech startup. And what we really deal with is physical and digital music memorabilia. We would have, for example, gift out physical cards at gigs and live events to fans in the crowd. And from there, basically, they would be able to scan these cards and they would be able to get memorabilia from that specific gig. Let's say you're at the Roundhouse in London on 12th of December, you're seeing a band there, and you want to really remember what happened about at that event and have some memorabilia. You would have the physical card as memorabilia. And then when you scan that into your account, you have digital memorabilia such as photos, videos, content from that specific gig, maybe some fan interviews. And, you know, you can also have giveaways and merch from that as well. So we just want to really connect the fans with the artists in a stronger way, which benefits both of them.
Got it. So this is complementary to the kind of classic physical merch, like the band shirts and all that kind of stuff. The difference is you have that kind of hybrid digital aspect from it. You have the collectible, and then you can kind of look at the exclusive content, etc. As a result. That's
exactly it. You know, the way I like to view it is kind of like a physical ticket stubs connected to a digital memory music box. So you can go back over time and remember what happened, because, you know, if other people like me, I've been to a lot of gigs and I can't remember half of them. So, you know, my friend will say something like, "Oh, do you remember what happened at this gig?" And I go, "No, I can't." And then, oh, yeah, then all of a sudden you realise, oh, yeah, that did happen. So, you know, these are a good like memory box, so you can go back and, you know, relive those events that you went to.
What I like about it too, you know, we kind of talked about the fan experience, but on the flip side of that, you know, it gives artists an extra something, perhaps another way to monetize or another way to connect and engage with their fans.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, artists could actually do quite a lot of things with these cards. They could either give them away for free to the fans. They might be able to say, you know, charge something or use it as an additional piece of merch at the merch stand, maybe with additional extras on there, like VIP access to gigs or in the future, or special discounts on merch. It's a lot of things you can do with it. And, you know, the mainstay is, it's like you say, connecting the fan and the artist, which is very important these days.
Right. And I think we'll probably go into that in a bit more detail as we kind of look at these tracks. Speaking of which, we're opening up today with what is an album opener, Lose Control by Ash, from the album 1977. Which was released in 1996. As a side note, this is actually one of 2 tracks that will feature from an album named after a year today. So those listening at home, have a think about what other album that could be coming up next. But yeah, tell us about the significance of this track to you and how it's potentially influenced the development of SpinBard.
Yeah, so this track does mean a lot to me. Ash were actually the first band that I was a super fan of. So I found them in the 90s. I, you know, remember it clear as day. I was around a friend's house and he just put this CD into his CD player, cranked up the volume, and then straight away this track, Lose Control, came on. And, you know, I just remember it blowing my mind. Ash, you know, they were pretty, for that time, a heavier indie rock band in the 90s. There was lots of Britpop going on at that point, but Ash were, you know, a bit more rocky, and it just hit me like a freight train when this song came on. Everything about it was just fantastic. The actual intro to the track has some TIE Fighter sounds from Star Wars. You know, I was a big Star Wars fan at the time, so I've noticed that straight away. And from that day forward, I was just a massive Ash fan. It just turned me into what I didn't know, but it was a super fan. From that point forward, I would go out and, you know, collect all the Ash CDs, even the singles of all the B-sides and everything on there. And I even remember, you know, recording performances off the TV onto a video cassette at that time. So I could listen back to that. It's a definition of superfan. You go out your way to find everything to do with the band and support them. And it just really showed me the power that the artist can have on the fans and building that connection between everyone. And it kind of gave me this passion for the music industry. I started, learning to play guitar after that point. I formed some bands myself. That never went anywhere. We wasn't good enough to get signed or anything like that, unfortunately. But it was just, it was brilliant. And it kind of guided me on my work journey as well after that. So, later along the stage, I formed a company called Vinyl Chapters, which was all based around communities. So I would get people to hold up a record and then they would tell me a bit about that record, why they liked it. I would take a photo and then put it all on this website and just build up these amazing stories about these fans and why they like the music they do. And, some of the stories that came out with it were absolutely fantastic. Some were funny, some were drama filled. Some were talking about how, music literally saved their lives. And it was just really good to build up this community. And that gradually grew into a online magazine structure with features, music, reviews. And, it just showed me the power of what fan communities can do and how important it is to have that connection between artist and fan.
Here's the thing, it was based all off your own back, so to speak. Ash wasn't saying, hey, everyone go out and, make a community around this and do that, or, go and buy our stuff. I mean, yes, in a way, that doing that indirectly, but it was the music itself. It was the energy of the track that kind of inspired you down the path of, creating your own music and hearing about other people's stories. And yeah, that's kind of incredible. The TIE Fighter sample, I wasn't actually aware that's what it was. I was kind of researching the track and they showed up on Who Sampled. I'm like, what? There's a sample on this? And then went a bit deeper and there's almost like a Star Wars kind of theme across the album from like the title itself being the year of the release. I think they played the Cantina Band theme live.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've actually got one of the B-sides I have has the whole Cantina Band song on there that they recorded. And I think, the other thing that I really liked about it was they were only 3 or 4 years older than me at the time. So again, it just had that connection. And I do actually remember a story of them when they were actually signed. They were taken to the pub to, sign off on the contracts.
Classic music industry venue.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, they were apparently looking quite shifty while they were in there because the manager bought them pints and I think they were only 17 at the time. So they wasn't actually old enough to drink. So, yes, I love little stories like that. And again, there's the kind of stories that you know about when you are a massive fan of bands. So it's really cool.
It's interesting. I kind of checked out their current merch. So they have kind of the regular stuff you would expect. They got some vinyl and they got some shirts and stuff. They have a 1977 brand Frisbee right now, and you can buy it with a beach ball as an Ash branded beach ball. So they kind of have a relive the summer of 96 kind of thing. And I found that kind of interesting to your point earlier about, the different ways in which you kind of engage with artists. It's not just the actual product, so to speak. They're speaking to that memory of, in this case, 1996. I doubt anyone's buying it to throw it about in the park, but they're kind of evoking that time, and that's what you're trying to capture a bit with SpinBard.
These days it's all about thinking outside of the box with merch and everything else, thinking of different things that will work with your specific audience, especially. So like you say, Ash, they were probably going for the nostalgia and going to their probably older fans that they have. And again, another thing that they've done recently is released 1977 on vinyl. They've only done it recently because in the 90s, vinyl wasn't really massive for indie rock bands. It was all CDs at that point. There was lots of dance albums on vinyl, but apart from that, there wasn't much around. So it's really good for fans to actually have the chance to get a proper limited edition vinyl or be able to have that on a format that they might not have had it before as well.
Yeah, I think vinyl became a kind of DJ only format throughout kind of nadir of the 90s and then into the 2000s. But yeah, then it obviously started to make a comeback, and I see cassette as well climbing back up. I think physical sales have overall kind of declined. I think vinyl continues to grow still in 2024. So I think that's an interesting, extra revenue stream for bands.
For sure. Vinyl is, it's kind of like an enigma in a way, because it's been growing year on year for the last 12 years in sales. But if you look at the figures as well, there's only about 50% of people that actually use that vinyl record they bought. So, a lot of people don't have record players and they just buy it for the aesthetic, for the, the big version of the album cover, all the stuff that comes with it. But not everyone has that record player. So they're literally buying it to support the artist. So it just shows how much that connection is there and how much people want to support the artist.
And to just have a nice thing, because obviously you can get it on streaming. It's not difficult to listen to the album, and obviously vinyl offers a different experience if you have a record player, but just kind of having a thing to hold from a band that you love, that's all it is.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of fans these days really want to support the artist, and they know because of, streaming, they don't make as much money as they used to. And buying merchandise helps bring money to that artist more than they would have had just through streaming. So I think a lot more people realize that now, and a lot more people therefore want to buy merch and want to support the artist to make sure they can continue creating.
So this kind of cuts to the core really of the discussion here, which is less about the actual items of merch themselves and basically ways that artists can either have more control over their fandom and their music, or create new streams of revenue that have been diminished through streaming, etc., which kind of leads on quite well to the second track, The Bandit by Kings of Leon, quite notably from an album that was pretty much an early NFT. I'm not an NFT historian, but it was definitely kind of at the forefront. I think Grimes was doing some stuff around that time, and obviously there's been a whole hype cycle, but it does get back to that question of how do artists find new ways to monetize tracks. So pushing it back to you, why did you choose this track and what's the significance?
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting album, really, this one, because like you say, they were one of the first bands to release an album as an NFT. So yeah, about 3-4 years ago, this happened now. And I chose this track because it kind of led me into my next role and experience within the NFT and Web3 space. So what they did, they released this NFT, which came with this vinyl record. You would purchase the NFT, and then this vinyl record would then be delivered. And, they would be connecting. You had the same number that was printed on the physical vinyl record as your NFT. So it's the first time I'd seen this physical and digital connection, which I've always thought has been important. And, this really interested me. So I bought one, taught myself all about blockchain and NFTs and how it all worked. Bought some crypto, which at that time was a lot more difficult to do. So it took a few tries to get everything right. And then I basically wrote an article around it for Vinyl Chapters, which I was still running at the time. That article did really well, and it ended up being quoted by the BBC website, and they sort of mentioned me on there. And it kind of just threw me into this NFT Web3 industry.
Suddenly you're the NFT expert.
Well, yes, this is it. At that time, there wasn't many around. So I kind of was on Radio 4 and ITV midday television talking about NFTs and music, and learning a lot myself at the time as well to make sure that I could go onto these kind of things and speak about it. And, this Kings of Leon record really gave me the chance to talk about it. And The Bandit is one of my favourite tracks off that record. It's catchy. It's, typical Kings of Leon at that time. They progressed from their earlier sort of hard rock sound to more of this kind of, indie pop sound. It kind of just showed me, like I said, what bands could do with this new technology. And I wanted to explore that. And that's where I joined the team at Real Nifty, a NFT marketplace for creatives to showcase and sell their physical and digital works. So, I managed to build this marketplace from scratch with a team of people. And, that went on for a few years, and it was fantastic. But it was music that gave me the chance to go into this industry, especially this Kings of Leon album, because it was kind of my learning point to move things forward and see what worked and what didn't. And what it really taught me was, bands need to innovate. They need to try things. They need to see what works for their specific audiences and what doesn't. Because I'm sure, some of the listeners and yourself might know, NFTs at the moment have had, there's been bad experiences throughout the last few years, isn't it? Some artists have kind of used them to just, make money and don't really care about the audience. But the ones that work are the ones that really get involved with it and use it as a fan connection. For example, message boards where anyone with the NFT can join and have conversations with the artists themselves. So again, it's kind of that jumping off point to engage with your audience and really grow your brand and your music and actually give something back to your fans.
That's an interesting point. So I think like if you take the NFT hype cycle to one side, the question I have, and perhaps you have some thoughts on this, is how do you create and, like you say, innovate in this field in a way that gets you money as an artist, but also provides value to your fans? So it's not just like a cash grab kind of thing. Some might say, Ticketmaster, dynamic pricing style. How do you balance those two?
You need to make sure that the artist actually gets involved in it. It's not just handed off to someone else to deal with that technology. The artist doesn't have to know the ins and outs of how NFTs or blockchain work. They just need to think of it as something else to help engage with the fans. An example of something that didn't work, I think it was about 3 years ago now, there's a Chris Brown NFT release. He was going to sell about 10,000 of these things to his fans, but I think only about something like 300 of them sold out of that. And the reason was because he was using it just to make money. He didn't get involved with it. He didn't know what it was. And the worst thing was he didn't know who his audience was. His audience didn't know anything about NFTs or care about them at that time, or there was no fan engagement there. And I think that's the main point. The technology is great, but you need to use it in a way that is going to engage with fans and that they want to get involved with. So like I said, message boards, for example, maybe whoever owns this NFT has a call from this artist, or maybe, they get access to their next gig with VIP treatment. They might get, money off merch or a free record like they did with Kings of Leon. There's always something you can do with it, to take it to the next level.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Drake released a poetry book, which was kind of ghostwritten and just basically not that great. If you were a super fan, you probably would run out and buy it, but it's kind of a bit cheap, especially with these larger artists. They probably can get away with doing that, but when it comes to making decisions as a band or as an artist, then you're probably not at that kind of level. It does become a real, how do we provide value to the fans while also kind of ensuring we're not losing out on this too.
Yeah, I think, it's a very symbiotic relationship between fans and artists. They bounce off each other. And I think, that's important to remember. Back in the, when was it, 60s, 70s, there was a very big kind of mod scene where they all kind of dressed similar. And I do remember an interview where someone asked Pete Townsend, who came up with this style? How did you, start dressing like this? And they were kind of saying, the fans kind of started doing it, then we copied them. And then you would ask some fans and they were saying they started dressing like this and we copied them. And I think that's important to remember, they bounce off each other as well. So the artist has to listen to what the fans want.
I think understanding your audience is key. I would also then kind of, to counter that, you can meet people and you can kind of generally know about your fans, but data is also a big challenge today. There's lots of it, but it's hard to get the specific data you need on fans, particularly for kind of live ticketing. There's a lot of first party data that is held onto. So there's a bit of a disconnect or a fragmentation of what you can learn about your audience. Perhaps we can segue into that through the next track. First off, thanks very much for getting this stuck in my head for the last few days. This one is Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. And this is the album named after a year, 1989. We could have had Dr. Dre, 2001. We could have had Prince, 1999. Could have had Azealia Banks, 1991. But anyway, Shake It Off, which kind of exists in two forms, the kind of original release and then Taylor Swift's version from 2023, post Masters Dispute. Tell us why you chose this track.
I chose this one because, these days and up to the stage I've got with SpinBard, I just obviously understand how much that fan connection matters. So when I chose Ash, that was kind of me being a super fan, looking at it from that angle. And going back to Taylor Swift, she is the queen of connecting with fans. I chose this track because it's kind of looking at it from the artist perspective now. So, how the artist reacts to superfans, how they can continue to grow their support through there. There's lots of different artists I could have chosen for this one, especially newer artists who are able to connect with their fans so much easier in today's world through social media and different channels because they're so adept at it. Charlie XCX, for example, with her Brat album, she did so much great stuff with that and had this whole brand around the actual album. K-pop stars have been fantastic at connecting with their fans as well. BTS, Blackpink, for example. Other bands, Youngblood has a really active fans base that absolutely adore him and he adores them. And Fred again as well. He's done some awesome stuff with his fans. Secret listening parties, for example. He did a gig for about 150 superfans that he just, got them to come along and hosted this secret listening party. So to actually grow these days and you've got to have that strong fan base that are willing to do anything for you. And, that's kind of why I chose Taylor Swift, because she's been around for a lot longer than the others, but has managed to build and build and build. And obviously now she's one of the biggest artists in the world. And it's mainly because of the relationship that she has with her fans.
Going back a little bit to the Kings of Leon example, the album itself and the sound is relatively traditional, that kind of Nashville sound, but doing a pretty future forward move with the NFT. You've got, so kind of going back to that hybrid, not just physical, digital, but kind of the old and the new. I mean, how much do you think this is newer bands versus older bands? You've kind of talked a bit about social media and ways to engage and connect with fans. But at the same time, you kind of have big name bands or artists from, pre-social, pre-streaming, who have a massive fan base, like a Bruce Springsteen, or, that kind of thing. Is it based on the use of social media versus just how big of a name you are? What's your take on that?
I guess there's kind of two sides to this. I think the younger generation and younger artists are a lot more used to being able to do these things and engage with their fans in the more digital aspects of ways. Whereas, it's not impossible for older bands at all, but I think they deal with it more from an area of nostalgia. Like you said with Ash, with beach balls and frisbees, that was something different that they did with merch. Whereas younger people are still trying to find their sound and trialing and testing everything. So I think, it's a bit of both there. The older artists can really bounce off that nostalgia and bring fans back into the loop with that kind of thing. And then obviously, the younger artists and fans, they can really get involved in playing live shows and through digital media. And, this is kind of the thing that I'm trying to all bring together through SpinBard. With these physical and digital connections, it relates to everyone. People love collecting physical cards. People miss collected ticket stubs, for example. So with these physical cards, it's kind of like a collector's memorabilia. So you can have something that's going to last a while and it's linked to the digital side of things. So you can actually have those videos and content all in one place.
I think to that point, we've spoken about a few different aspects of fandom and, how people buy into that, whether through merchandise and gigs and how different bands have approached that. To kind of wrap it up and bring it back to SpinBard, how can, let's say, an average artist, so let's say either starting out or what you may call a kind of more mid-tier band, use something like SpinBard to start engaging more with their fans and provide that value? What would your recommendations be?
What I'm trying to do at SpinBard is connects the fans and artists in a more engaging way. And also what it actually does is helps the artists realize who their fans are, what they like, and actually gives them the data behind those fans. Like you said earlier, Tom, it's very difficult for artists, especially up and coming artists, to find their audience and make sure they know who they are. If you buy a CD or a vinyl record, you usually don't know who buys it. There's no connection to the band or the artist management. They don't know who bought it. Whereas with a platform like SpinBard, when you gift or sell these cards to people in your audience, they will then obviously sign into the app and the artist gets the data behind that. So they will get the email address, for example, of that fan. They will be able to add them to their newsletter. They will be able to keep in contact with them, tell them about future gigs, future things happening, give them discounts, give them merch, special access to, say, certain areas on the website, that kind of stuff. So it really brings them in, and they'll be able to engage with that fan and be able to give them those additional extras, as well as know more about them. They will know what fans have been at what shows of theirs, location, what kind of content they use on the app. They'll be able to tailor this and then make sure that they're giving the audience and their fans what they want. And I think that's very important for both fan and artists to continually grow and be able to carry on creating, and fan because they be able to get the content and what they want out of the band, whether it's, music or content, video, anything really.
The way I'm kind of hearing it is to tie it into a bigger conversation. This is another way to build your own platform versus kind of being reliant upon streaming services or Ticketmaster and all those, to feed you essentially. But through that, you can not only understand who your fans are, you can engage with them better, and you can continue to build that fan base, through your own means and kind of have that control. It sounds like a great deal for artists and fans, to be honest.
As you know, if you're on Spotify, artists don't know who's listening to their tracks on there. That doesn't help them. They don't know who to, perform to. They don't know who to make sure they're advertising to. The future is really connecting that fan with the artist and making sure they have that data and they have it at hand to be able to grow themselves as an artist and grow their careers.
Well, Jamie, it's been great to talk about Frisbees and NFTs and Taylor Swift in this period of time. Anything else you'd like to mention about SpinBard, and where can people go to find out more?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about SpinBard, you can head over to www.spinbard.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so if anyone wants to add me over there, please do. And that's it. Anyone who wants to support, come over and say hello.
Nice. Thanks, Jamie.
Cheers.